So 49 was just a 13 over 3 plus root 11 rationalized question. And this is a multiply by the conjugate case because that is a part of a binomial. The question I think that I received is why don't they distribute in the numerator? I don't know, okay? So I would take either. The real place that you have to distribute is definitely the denominator because that is, so they just left it like that. If you distributed it, that's totally fine. I would take either on an open response, just multiple choice, be prepared to pick from if they don't have the exact same format. Then when you FOIL, 3 times 3 is 9. Your outer is minus 3 root 11, and your inner is plus 3 root 11. There's the cancellation that we capitalize on with conjugates. And then positive root 11 minus or times the negative root 11 is just minus 11. So this all just ends up being over negative 2. And that negative could be, you may see that negative just up top. It doesn't matter as long as there's just one of them, or you might even see it out in front. So that's 49. 51, probably similar, but I'll just do it because I think a couple people asked, and it wasn't necessarily all for the reason of why they didn't distribute, but the fact is they didn't. So 7 root 5 plus 2, I'll just keep it separate. And then in the denominator, we've got 5. When you do your first, your outer and inner are going to cancel, minus 4. So that's just all over 1, which you just don't even need. Any questions on that? Okay, 59 was the 4th root of negative 16. And if you look carefully at the directions for that section, it said evaluate each expression or indicate that the root is not a real number. When you're trying to take an even root of a negative number, that's where imaginary comes in. Nothing multiplied by itself 4 times is going to land you at negative 16, so not real is all you had to do there. 99 was an exponent property one. It starts, the general rule I think is this: if it starts with fractional exponents, which is otherwise known as rational exponents, then keep your answer that way. I think it's typically what you'll see. So the parentheses 3 to the 3rd power is 27. Y to the 1/4 to the 3rd power to power you multiply is y to the 3/4 over y to the 1/12. Then you have common bases here, in which case you subtract the exponent. So 3/4 minus 1/12. Common denominator. So get this to be, instead of 3/4 times 3 is going to turn it into 9/12 is really what that should be. 9/12 minus 1/12 is 8/12. And 8/12 reduces to 2/3. So 27y to the 2/3. Any questions on that? 111 and 121 probably came up the most. 111, simplifying, another pretty tricky, a lot of exponent rules stacking up here. So I would first get rid of the negative 1/2 power. I would bring this whole thing down to the denominator and keep it to the 1/2 power. Okay? Now, the 1/2 power is technically the square root, so a little bit of concern with those absolute value signs typically, except for in the directions it says, assume that all variables represent positive numbers. There's your out. The absolute value thing is not going to go on here because we're assuming that x and y are positive anyway. That absolute value case only protects against when x and y could be negative. So here on the first one, the square root of 49 is 7. Here, if we want to raise a power to a power, you multiply. So negative 2 times 1/2 is negative 1. And y to the 4th to 1/2, when you multiply y squared, there's a negative exponent I'll have to deal with in a minute, times xy to the 1/2, which might as well just go on top. So xy to the 1/2 power. Right? When you multiply a fraction by a non-fraction, you just put it over 1, multiply the top will be that, and the bottom will be this. So now our common base rule. This is technically an exponent of a 1. So 1 minus negative 1 is 2. So x squared. And anytime you follow that rule, that goes, the resultant goes on the numerator. The 7 is still in the denominator. Here, when we do 1/2 minus 2, we get negative 1/2, but mixed numbers should not be used. Negative 1/2 is like negative 3/2. Okay? And then we have to handle the negative exponent. So you just kind of keep grinding through these rules one at a time until everything is taken care of. 7y to the positive 3/2 now in the denominator. Okie doke. You do notice at one point we had a negative exponent on the x, which I thought I was going to have to deal with initially, but then I realized when I did the common basing that kind of washed itself out on its own. So just kind of taking it 1 or 2 rules at a time, anything that you can wrap your head around, but don't try to do all of it at once. There's no way you get from here to here in the blink of an eye. It's like a grinding it out process. Any follow-ups on that one? Okay. And then 121 gives us this function that is the temperature in Celsius. C stands for the wind chill. I'm sorry. C is the wind chill. When lowercase t is the temperature outside, the air temperature, and V, which I'm going to use here in a minute, is the wind speed. We know all about wind chill in Buffalo, don't we? Maybe not. Isn't this funny? I'm assuming this is accurate, that this is exactly what formula is probably used to come up with wind chill. We should test this on a winter day, see if it's accurate. So the first step, part A, says to rewrite the equation for calculating wind chill temperatures using rational exponents. Rational exponents are just fractional exponents. So it's just asking you really to take this and rewrite this as a V with a 4 over 25 and rewrite this as a V with a 4 over 25. It's just asking you to rewrite it without the radicals and with the rational exponents. So that's all that part is. And B says to use this initial equation in part A, so I'm going to get rid of these, and find the wind chill temperature to the nearest degree when the air temperature is 25. So T is going to be 25. And V when the wind speed is 30 miles per hour. And this is, of course, a calculator question, and you would just type this in verbatim. V to the 4th, 30 to the 4th. So with your calculator, I'm just going to literally type that in. Can I do that on the same screen? Sure I can. 35.74 plus 0.6215. Tell me if I type something wrong. I'm going too fast. Minus 35.74. Now, I don't type in the root, right? There's a way to do the 25th root of 30 to the 4th, but I'm just going to take 30 and raise it to the 4/25th power, honestly, because it's just easier for me than going into all these other menus and searching for the root button. Plus 0.4275 times 25 times 30 to the 4 over 25th power again. Oops. 8 degrees. Does that make sense? It was 25 degrees. Oh no, the air temperature was 25 degrees, so of course the wind chill is lower than that. So yeah, I think that makes sense. Do you remember? Is that what the back of the book said? 8? Does that sound accurate? I'm taking your nods as a yes. Good. Okay. So that's all of that.